forgot. Good morning. This is our Mindset Monday. I am pinch hitting for Megan, so I didn't have anything planned for this morning for Mindset Monday, but I want to, for those of you who did not watch the team meeting last night, I really want to focus in on what we talked about from Atomic Habits last night because I think it was super powerful. So I am going to read the portion of the book that we went over last night because I think that is really important for your mindset as you build your business. So many people want to do everything perfectly and they won't learn because they're trying to do it perfectly. So I just want to talk about this. And I love the expression that, sorry. I think it goes, excitement on fire is better than knowledge on ice, something like that, right? So, like, if you just open your mouth and talk to people, you'll start to figure out what works. But you need to go out and talk to people. And so many people get so hung up on what do I say? What do I say? What do I say? That they don't talk to people. But if you just share your energy and your excitement with people about sharing this message, as opposed to like trying to figure out all the perfect words to say, you're in so much better shape. So I'm going to read the first part of chapter 11 of Atomic Habits because this was so powerful and it goes to what I was just saying. So on the first day of class, Jerry Olsman, a professor at University of Florida, divided his film photography students into two groups. Everyone on the left side of the classroom, he explained, would be in the quantity group. They would be graded solely on the amount of work they produced. On the final day of class, he would tally the number of photos submitted by each student. 100 photos would rate an A, 90 photos a B, 80 photos a C, and so on. Meanwhile, everyone on the right side of the room would be in the quality group. They would be graded only on the excellence of their work. They would only need to produce one photo during the semester, but to get an A, it had to be nearly perfect image. At the end of the term, he was surprised to find that all the best photos were produced by the quantity group. During the semester, these students were busy taking photos, experimenting with composition and lighting, testing out various methods in the darkroom, and learning from their mistakes. In the process of creating hundreds of photos, they honed their skills. Meanwhile, the quality group sat around speculating about perfection. In the end, they had little to show for their efforts other than unverified theories and one mediocre photo. So there's a parenthetical here with a footnote. A similar story is told in the book Art and Fear by David Bale and Kevin Clemens. It has been adapted here with permission. See the note for a full explanation. It's easy to get. Sorry, my dogs are going crazy. Boys, Creed, stop. It is easy to get bogged down trying to find the optimal plan change. The fastest way to lose weight, the best program to build muscle, the perfect idea for a side hustle. We're so focused on figuring out the best approach that we never get around to taking action. As Voltaire once wrote, the best is the enemy of the good. I refer to this as the difference between being in motion and taking action. The two ideas sound similar, but they're not the same. When you're in motion, you're planning and strategizing and learning. Those are all good things, but they don't produce a result. Action, on the other hand, is the type of behavior that will deliver an outcome. If I outline 20 ideas for articles I want to write, that's motion. If I actually sit down and write an article, that's action. If I search for a better diet plan and read a few books on the topic, that's motion. If I actually eat a healthy meal, that's action. Sometimes motion is useful, but it will never produce an outcome by itself. It doesn't matter how many times you talk to the personal trainer, that motion will never get you into shape. Only the action of working out will get the result you're looking to achieve. If motion doesn't lead to results, why do we do it? Sometimes we do it because we actually need to plan or learn more. But more often than that, we do it because motion allows us to feel like we're making progress without running the risk of failure. Most of us are experts at avoiding criticism. It doesn't feel good to fail or to be judged publicly, so we tend to avoid situations where that might happen. And that's the biggest reason why you slip into motion rather than taking action. You want to delay failure. It's easy to be in motion and convince yourself that you're still making progress. You think, I've got conversations going with 4 potential clients right now. That's good. We're moving in the right direction. Or I brainstormed some ideas for that book I want to write. This is coming together. Motion makes you feel like you're getting things done, but really you're just preparing to get something done. When preparation becomes a form of procrastination, you need to change something. You don't want to merely be planning, you want to be practicing. If you want to master a habit, the key is to start with repetition, not perfection. You don't need to map out every feature of a new habit. You just need to practice it. This is the first takeaway of the third law. You just need to get your reps in. So then he goes on to talk about how long does it actually take to form a new habit? And so there's sort of this theory that it takes 21 days to create a new habit. And he said it's really not about how long it takes. It's how many reps it takes. So habit formation is the process by which a behavior becomes progressively more automatic through repetition. The more you repeat an activity, the more structure of your brain changes to become efficient at that activity. Neuroscientists call this long-term potentiation, which refers to the strengthening of connections between neurons in the brain based on recent patterns of activity. With each repetition, cell-to-cell signaling improves and neural connection tightens. And so this was first described by neuropsychologist Donald Hebb in 1949, and it's commonly known as Hebb's law. Neurons that fire together wire together. Repeating a habit leads to clear physical changes in the brain. In musicians, the cerebellum, critical for physical movement like plucking a guitar string or pulling a violin bow, is larger than in non-musicians. Mathematicians, meanwhile, have increased gray matter in the inferior parietal lobule, which plays a key role in the computation and calculation. Its size is directly related to the amount of time spent in the field. The older and more experienced the mathematician, the greater the increase in gray matter. When scientists analyzed the brains of taxi drivers in London, they found that the hippocampus, a region of the brain involved in spatial memory, was significantly larger in their subject than in non-taxi drivers. Even more fascinating, the hippocampus decreased in size when a driver retired. Like the muscles of the body responding to regular weight training, particular regions in the brain adapt as they are used and atrophy as they are abandoned. So all of that said, we need to start with just doing the action. One of the things that I said last night on the meeting, just we're sort of reinforcing what we talked about on the meeting last night during the Atomic Habits section. So we talk a lot about consistency in your business, doing your reach outs, talking to new people. When you do those things regularly, your brain creates new neural pathways, and it gets easier and easier to have the conversation. So you're actually wiring your brain by having those conversations and doing your reach outs to get better at what you are doing. And so it's not something you can just study. I think a lot of us spend a lot of time focusing on what's the best way, or how do I, what if I, start doing this study? What if I start studying with this person to learn more about the industry? What if I read this book? What if I do that thing? Well, none of that works unless you're actually putting those things into action. And so we need to be really constantly having conversations, starting new conversations, because our business is all about conversation. Eric Worre says all business is conversation. So
Yeah.
unless you're having conversations, it's not going to happen. Like you can study as much as you want, but unless you're having the conversations, it's not going to happen. Um, and it almost doesn't matter if you're having enough conversations. You know, I talked uh, or if you listen sometimes to if you have ever gone to conference and heard Rudy Revak talk, he has 3 or 4 speeches that he does over and over and over again. And one of his speeches is about how when he started in this industry, he was horrible. He was unbelievably unsuccessful. And he sat down with a mentor and said, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And basically the mentor said to him, here, I'm going to give you these 10 paper clips and I'm going to give you the secret to being successful in this business. And if you do exactly what I tell you do, you'll be successful. So basically, he gave him 10 paper clips and said, every day, I want you to start with the paper clips in your right pocket and have a conversation with somebody about your business. And every time you have a conversation with somebody about your business, you're going to move the paperclip from your right pocket to your left pocket. And you can do this he actually switched over to pennies because the paper clips were making holes in his pockets. But he would not go to sleep until he had 10 conversations a day with people about new conversations, not like repeat conversations where he's going back to the same well, but new conversations over and over and over again. And he actually said one night he hadn't had 10 conversations and he was driving home and it was like 11 o'clock at night. And he was like, what am I going to do? I haven't had my 10 conversations yet. And he stopped at a bar and he sat down next to a guy at the bar and the guy was very drunk. And he had the conversation with him just so he could get in his 10th conversation. That is creating new neural pathways in your brain. And that is what made him successful in this industry, was by doing that action repetitively over and over again. Turn off your brain, don't think, have the conversations, do the things. So it's really all about creating those neural pathways and not not sort of overthinking. And because if you're maybe practicing once a week and thinking, okay, I'm going to practice having the conversation now, what if it goes badly? I mean, if you're having enough conversations and you're getting enough no's, then you're also getting the yeses and you're getting better at having the conversation. So as I said last night, lots of times what will happen is I will get on a coaching call and people will be like, well, I had this person say this. What would you say to that? And I will just talk and people will say to me, oh my gosh, can you say that exactly like you just said it? I need to write it down. And I'm like, no, because I just said it because I've practiced so many times. And if you just put in the work and do the practice and do the reps, right? You just keep practicing over and over again. You're going to get to the point where you can just say it. You don't think about it. And you're having a natural conversation. And if you say it like me, you're not going to sound like you, right? So it's not about the words that I say. It's about creating your own words that are authentic to you and not even thinking about it, creating those neural pathways in your brain that are just from having many, 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 many conversations about this. I mean, I've been doing this for 13 years. I've had a lot of conversations. So that's how it happens, right? And I think on the day to day, we forget that. And then we go back to, well, what can I do differently that's movement, but not action, right? Like, what can I study? What can I listen to? And none of that is doing the things that hurt, right? It's not fun. It's not fun having the conversations and getting no's. What can I do that hurts, but's going to move me forward? So, anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about this morning. Comments, discussion.
I like what Jeff just put. What gets repeated gets remembered. What gets, oops, I just lost it. What
Remembered gets
gets
repeated. Yeah.
remembered gets repeated. And that's true. I mean,
Yeah.
look at the rote learning in school. We
Yeah.
learned a lot by just rote learning, which just doing the same thing over and over and over and over. And
Multiplication tables, right? Remember learning multiplication tables and you would have to take those stupid time tests over and over again?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Right? Like you just kept doing it, kept doing it, kept doing
Mhm.
it. And yeah, it's the same thing and it gets boring.
Mhm.
yeah. And I remember Eric Worre saying, go back to the people that when you first started out and say to them, I was really so excited. I may not have presented this the right way, but let me talk to you, again
Yeah.
about it. And
Yeah.
that's a good thing that you
Yeah.
go back and say, I might have been
I'm
too
sorry.
exuberant
Yeah.
or whatever. I
Yeah.
screwed up, so
Yeah.
I really want you to know about this product or this company and how it can help you. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Jemani, yeah, and then there's this thing which I kind of have a problem with too is, and Fraser Brooks says it a lot, with learning. Like if you just constantly going on and learning or going on these trainings and getting just retaining all this information but not actually doing it, you're going to be stuck. You can't
Yeah.
move. So it's like
Yeah.
learn, do, take a left step and then the right step, learn, do.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
And that I tend to take in a lot and
Yeah.
not do it right away.
Right.
I
Right.
guess.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
it's really important to, when you do that, to take that implementation step. If you're not taking the implementation step, you're never going to really learn it.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, super important. All right. So anything else you guys want to talk about today? Any place that you may be stuck, or do you feel like this was helpful?
Oh yeah, this chapter was really good. And it said, make it easy.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
Just do it, make it easy. Make it easy for you to say what you need to say and then go from there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, because I love talking to people and I talk to people a lot
Mhm.
wherever I go, even at the holiday party I went to last week. I just kept talking to people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
See,
Yeah.
what you
that's
got to
where
do.
I'm opposite of you because I'm always shy and reserved. So this is like really, but I see before when I first started Pure Haven and I was so afraid. Like Dee's like, okay, go live. And I'm like, I was so afraid. I was nervous. I was sweating. And I can see how much I've improved, even if it's a little bit now.
Yeah.
Even being on the call in front of you guys, I
Yeah.
probably would have been so nervous back then.
Yeah. And the
And just
other thing I'll
doing it all
say
the time.
is, um, if you are the type of person who's nervous about having conversations,
Mhm.
people love to talk about themselves. Um, so just ask them questions about themselves. Maybe make a list of questions that you can ask people about themselves.
Yeah.
Um, and fall back on those, right? Practice those questions, sort of learn those questions that you can always ask people when you are out and about and you want to start a conversation. I was at a holiday party this past week as well, and I was talking to somebody, and I realized after a little while, like he just kept asking me questions about myself, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have not even asked him anything about himself. Like I had that realization. I was like, he just kept asking me all these questions. And it
Mhm.
was fun and easy to talk to him because he just kept asking me questions about me. And I was like, oh, like I need to ask him something about him and reciprocate in the conversation. But he was like making it so easy. You want to be that person that's really easy to talk to and that people enjoy talking to. And the subject people enjoy talking about them the most is themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you are somebody who has a hard time making conversation, just think about like even Google a list of questions, like what are great conversation starters? What are great questions to ask people to learn about them? Like create a list of those. And maybe we could even respond with those kinds of questions on the recording of this so that people will have that go-to list. So when they're out and about and they're creating, I mean, I talk to people in line at the grocery store. I actually, I went on a trip with a friend of mine who's very, very quiet. Like she talks to me, but she's very quiet and very reserved. I talk to everybody all the time. Wherever I am, I talk all the time. I make friends with a lamppost. Like I talk to everybody. And she's like, "Oh my God, do you talk to everybody?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do." Like I just, it's how I am. So I think for those of us who find it harder, it might be nice to just sort of have that list of go-to questions so that when you are out and about and you want to start a conversation with somebody, you know what, you kind of know what to talk about. And so I guess my biggest tip would be, you know, find out what commonality there is, right? Like if you have kids, ask people if they have kids, how old they are. If you have dogs, ask people if they have a dog, what kind of dog they have, right? Like find those commonalities with people that you can relate to people. So we had a great conversation with my husband and I had a great conversation with this couple. They love to travel. And so we were talking about different trips we had been on and sharing stories about different travel we'd done. And so that's always a great thing too, is just find the commonality. I ended up getting the woman's phone number and she gave me tips for my trip next year because we've never been to Spain and she loves Barcelona. So she was telling me places to go and things to do in Barcelona. And these are people that we'll probably get together with now because we had such a great time talking to them. And so find the commonality, find the things that you care about that they also care about. And that's how you're going to build relationship, right? I can share with you again I have a new preferred club member that just signed as a preferred club member the other day, and she wanted to get some cleaning products. We were going to sit down for a one-on-one, and the day that I sat down with her was the day my father-in-law died. He had passed that morning. And so it was actually really funny because we were supposed to meet at this restaurant and I got to the restaurant and it was the wrong restaurant. Like it was the name was right. Like it was the right restaurant, but it was in the wrong location. And I'd been there before. So I pulled up and I was like, oh no, I'm at the wrong restaurant. So I shot her a text and I was like, so sorry, running late, showed up at the wrong restaurant, and sent her a picture. And she was like, oh my God, I went to the wrong restaurant too. But she had gone to a restaurant because it was before a networking meeting. I guess they used to meet at a different place. And so she had gone to the wrong place because she went to where they used to meet. And I had gone to the right restaurant, but the wrong location. And so it was like this whole comedy where we were like, oh my gosh, I'm in the wrong place. Like both of us were in the wrong place to meet each other. And so we finally got there and she was like, I got there before she did. And she was like, I am so sorry. I'm so thrown off. My father is in hospice. And I was like, oh, I am so sorry. My father-in-law just died this morning and he was in hospice. And so, I mean, that's not a fun thing to relate with somebody over, but it is something that immediately, when you find commonalities that you have like that, it immediately pulls you closer together with somebody because you know exactly what they're going through in that moment, right? So when you have those commonalities, obviously that's not something that you're gonna run into every day. Like,
Right.
God willing, that's not a situation anybody wants to be in. But find the commonalities. When my son was younger, I would relate to people who had kids with special needs. Like it was really easy if somebody had a special needs kid for us to start having great conversations about 504 plans and IEPs and, different like sensory things that you could use in the classroom to like get them back on track. And like, we could have these amazing conversations. And so find the commonalities with people. And sometimes it takes vulnerability, right? Telling somebody that your father-in-law was in hospice and just passed that morning, that takes vulnerability. She was like, I can't even believe you're here. And I was like, it's nice to get your mind off of it, A. And B, he was suffering for so long. It was just nice that he was finally at peace. With my son in having special needs, like you're sharing information with people. That takes vulnerability, right? It takes some vulnerability to say to people, yeah, my son has special needs and we're struggling with this. And like, find the vulnerable. Don't just be surface, like really relate to people and find things where you guys can help each other. And sometimes it's not things that like, it may have nothing to do with Pure Haven, right? Like, but it's finding those things that are you're going to form a bond over them.
Right. I think that's so important. And sometimes it's uncomfortable
Yeah.
going up to someone that you don't know, but the more you do it, the more you get used to it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say the first way to figure out like what to talk to people about, because I think that's really what people struggle with the most, is make a list of things that you have in your life, right? Like, so that you can find those commonalities and build those bonds. Being a military mom is now part of like who I am, right? So my husband also good at talking to everybody out in public. He wasn't always, by the way, like that's definitely something that is newer for him. Um, and I think it came from, and this is interesting. So it came from practice because he had to go up to people's doors, knock on their doors, and introduce himself and say, I'm running for office. And he had to learn how to have that commonality with people. So if we are both home on a Friday night and we don't have any other plans, we end up going to the German American Cultural Society. It's like our go-to spot. We go, we get dinner. Last week it was schnitzel with spratzel, so that was really yummy. Anyway, I digress. Um, sometimes, usually it's just like bratwurst. But on the third Friday, they have a special meal. So it tends to be busier on the third Friday. So it was pretty busy. And usually we don't have to wait at the bar, but my husband was standing at the bar waiting and he started talking to the guy next to him. And he comes back, he's like, hey, the guy up there was in the army, blah, blah, blah. He tells me what he did. And I'm like, how do you know that? And he's like, oh, well, he had on a shirt. Like, be observant. Notice what people are wearing. See if there's some commonality there. If you're a runner and you run 5Ks, how many people do you see out and about with t-shirts on that are like 5K t-shirts, right? People are always wearing, if people have done a 5K, they wear the t-shirt. So like find the things that you have in common with somebody and start the conversation.
I guess you can even say like your location. Like for you,
Yeah.
you're there every Friday night, so you can have that conversation with somebody you see new. Hey, how often
Yeah.
do you come here? Or like
Yeah.
me, if you're at a park or something, hey, how often do you go to the park? Do you go any others? And da da da. So the
Yeah.
location helps as a
Yeah.
starter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like one of the reasons that we go there is my husband likes German beer. So
Mhm.
that can be a reason to start a conversation, right?
Mhm.
Oh, we started coming here because my husband really likes the beer. Are you a beer fan? Like, are you a beer
Mhm.
person? Is that why you're here? Like, yeah, you can have those conversations and somebody else might say, no, like my family was German, whatever.
Mhm.
You can start the conversation. So yeah,
Yeah. Are you German?
no.
Oh.
So I started going there because I was taking German lessons because we were going to Germany. And when I walked in, it's in the so um it's in the basement of so there's a big like hall upstairs that you can rent out for functions. And then the basement is like, it looks like a German beer hall. And
Mhm.
so I walked in to go to the library, and I was like, why is there like a full bar and, like long picnic tables and all of that? And so I asked the German instructor, and she said, oh, they have like, it's open every Friday night, and like anybody can come, and they have food, and they have German beer on tap. And I was like, oh, so we
Mhm.
decided to go, and then we just started going all the time. And so
That's
then
cool.
we ended up joining because, we were there all the time anyway. So
Mhm.
you don't have to be German to join, and you
Yeah,
don't have to be a
that's
member
it
to
remind
go, but
yeah, that's cool. It reminds me of the Lusitania Club back in Rhode Island, where I'm from. The
yeah,
Portuguese club upstairs, they have the big hall to rent out. Downstairs, they got the bar, and
yeah.
yeah, same thing. But yeah, that's cool.
All right.
Ways
So
to open a conversation.
anything else, ladies, or do you feel like that was helpful?
Oh, that was really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So go start conversations.
Yes.
All right. Have a great
All right.
day, and I'll see you
You
on
Thanks,
too.
Beth.
later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.